no scientist has all the answers. But the one thing you shouldn't say is that because I don't know, therefore God did it. That's a
What do you think
cardinal error.
happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes?
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? You have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
And Richard Dawkins joins me now. Richard Dawkins, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to appear on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Pleasure.
I assume you will be uncensored.
Of course.
You've never been censored, have you?
No.
In fact, people have tried to censor you, and we're going to come to a bit of that later on. This cancel culture has even come to your door. What do you make of that? People these days not wanting to hear opinions they don't like.
I think it's very sad. I think, especially in universities, where I've spent all my life, universities are places where you should be free to speak your mind and listen, even to something that you don't like. And it's very tragic that universities seem to have bought into the idea that if you don't like what you think you're going to hear from somebody, you should shut them up and refuse to let them speak.
Yeah, I mean, I find it completely baffling that at a place of education where the whole point is to test your own thought processes and to deliberately be exposed to other thoughts, we're now in a place where a lot of students feel they just don't want to hear it. They only want to hear stuff that validates their own opinion.
They use this word safe. They want to feel safe. And university is the one place where you should not feel safe.
Yes,
certainly not
should be
intellectually
dangerous.
safe. Yes, exactly.
In terms of thinking.
Yes.
You know, I just think you want to be constantly challenged and provoked about what you believe and what you think.
You want to be physically safe, but
Yes.
intellectually you should be.
So here we are, watching universities, the supposed sanctuaries of free thought, become echo chambers. It's almost absurd at this point. Instead of being places where students should be grappling with different perspectives, universities have started to prioritize safe spaces, which, let's be honest, is really just another way to say, let's shield ourselves from uncomfortable truths. Look, I get it. No one likes to be challenged all the time. But that's the thing. Education is supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to stretch your thinking, to push you into uncomfortable territory. If you only want to hear things that affirm your beliefs, you're not learning. You're just comforting yourself with your own biases. This whole idea that universities should shield students from uncomfortable opinions is not just misguided, it's dangerous. Think about it. You're supposed to be preparing yourself for the real world. And in the real world, no one cares whether you feel comfortable or safe. The world doesn't stop to validate your opinions. It challenges them, and it forces you to adapt, grow, and evolve. Universities should be places where ideas clash, where you're forced to test your thinking and sharpen your arguments. This mindset of, I don't like that opinion, so let's cancel it, is the antithesis of what education is supposed to be.
I think the whole cancel culture, woke kind of world we live in is a fascinatingly disturbing one, and you've got strong views on it. But I want to start, because you're known as one of the world's big thinkers, I want to start with some big theme stuff. And I guess there's no bigger theme than evolution itself. And I think I'd ask a question like this. What do we know now about where we've come from, and what don't we know?
Okay. We know once you've got a self-replicating entity, which nowadays is DNA, but it wasn't originally, once you've got life started, once natural selection, Darwinian natural selection has got going, then we pretty much understand the 4 billion year history of what's given rise to us and all other living creatures. We don't know how it started, and that's still a mystery, and it may always be a mystery, because it happened a very long time ago, and we may never know exactly what did happen. We know the kind of thing it had to be.
What kind of thing do you think it was?
It was the origin of a self-replicating molecule, a molecule that makes copies of itself. DNA is such a molecule, but the original one was almost certainly not DNA, because DNA is what's been called a high-tech replicator. There had to be a precursor to DNA. The laws of chemistry gave rise to a molecule which had this unusual property of making copies of itself, which mutated, changed in random ways. And that gave rise to competition between rival versions of it, and that gave rise to the whole panoply of life eventually.
OK, so I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. So I'm a religious person, which I know is anathema to you, and we'll come to that. But my arguments with atheists, historically, have always come down to one thing. And maybe you've got an answer which will persuade me of the folly of my ways.
The idea that life must have been created by a higher power because it's so complex is something we've heard for centuries. But let's be real. That argument just doesn't hold up anymore. We know that life came from a self-replicating molecule, something that evolved over billions of years, shaped by natural selection. That's it. There's no need to invoke a god here. We're constantly told that life's complexity proves there must be a creator. But if complexity requires a creator, doesn't that just shift the problem? Now we have to explain where the creator came from. And guess what? That leads to even more complexity. This is the problem with the God of the gaps argument. The more science advances, the more these gaps shrink. A god is not the answer. Natural processes are. We've seen it time and time again. When science doesn't have an answer, some people rush to fill the void with the idea of a god. But here's the thing. We don't need a supernatural explanation for natural phenomena. There is no need to cling to an outdated worldview just because we don't have all the answers yet. As science progresses, it fills in these gaps, and the need for supernatural explanations becomes less and less. This is simple. Let's follow the evidence, not just throw our hands up and say, God did it.
Which is this. What was there at the start?
We don't know. But I don't know, and you don't know.
But no human brain, unless you want to correct me, can actually comprehend nothingness, right?
No, but it's a fallacy to think that because I don't understand how it happened, therefore God did it. I mean, that's just weak.
Well, no, okay, but I'm prepared to have an open mind about this.
Yes.
But somebody did. And I just have never met a human brain that can explain to me what happened before, say you go for the Big Bang argument. What was there before? What does nothing look like?
Physicists are debating this. I'm not a physicist, but they're debating it. My point is that they don't know, and I don't know, and you don't know, and it doesn't help to postulate a God that did it.
But you're certain it's not a God, and yet you admit you don't know.
No, I'm certain that it doesn't help to postulate something very complicated at the outset, because what we've got is primeval simplicity, and from that stems everything. And what science does, it starts with simplicity, which is relatively easy to understand, and from that it develops into the whole of the universe and the whole of life. It doesn't help to start with complexity, and a creator has to be complex, whatever else he is.
The reason that I subscribe to the theory that there must be a more powerful being out there than anything the human race has created is because, like I say, a human brain can't comprehend nothingness or what may have come before nothingness. We can't. We're not able to extrapolate what that is, right? I mean, no scientist can explain nothingness, can they? Plausibly.
Well, maybe they can't. You'd have to talk to a physicist. But even
Could you explain it?
No, I'm not a physicist. But
you're a very smart guy, and you're a very vehement atheist.
No, I'm not. I'm not that vehement.
Well, you're pretty vehement. I mean, you just think all belief in all gods is ludicrous, right?
I think that it doesn't help to introduce complexity at the outset. That's my point.
No, I get that, but
no, well, I don't think you do get it.
Well, no, I do because But you're asking me to consider that my own belief in a deity that may be above human thinking and understanding and brain power that was there.
Theists love to bring this one up, as though it's the trump card that proves God exists. But here's the thing. Just because we don't know something doesn't mean we should insert a deity into the equation. We don't know exactly what happened before the Big Bang, and to be honest, it might be something beyond our comprehension right now. But that doesn't mean it must have been a supernatural being. The Big Bang Theory doesn't require God. It just means that, at some point, everything we see around us started from a singularity, and it's expanded ever since. The fact that we don't know what was there before doesn't force us to leap to the conclusion of, God did it. This is a classic argument from ignorance fallacy. Just because we don't have an answer yet doesn't mean we should insert a God into the void. We're still figuring it out, and we should remain humble in acknowledging that, but that doesn't mean we make up answers based on our comfort zones.
Universally, that my theory is scientifically flawed, whereas I would throw back at you, okay, but I need to be given an alternative. I need some scientist somewhere to explain to me, right, 4 billion years, all right, but then what was there before that?
Well, scientists can't answer that, and what they say is things like it's like going north of the North Pole. I'm sure. I gather you recently introduced Stephen Hawking. He probably said that to you.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah.
But the point is this: science can explain things starting with simplicity and working up to complexity.
No, I get that, but where science can't explain something, i.e. in the case I just gave you, is it not possible that you're all wrong on the atheist side of the argument?
We could be all wrong. But what...
And you might get a shocking surprise one day when you're no longer with us.
You might.
And you discover we were right all along.
It's possible.
Do you concede it's possible?
It's highly unlikely.
You don't know, though, do you?
No, of course I don't. Scientists take a pride in admitting what they don't know. And they don't know what happened before the Big Bang. They don't even admit that the word before means anything with respect to the Big Bang. Physicists will tell you.
But it has to. I mean,
Well, it doesn't, because that's a naive statement. Physicists will say that you do not have to say there was a time began at the Big Bang, is what some physicists will say.
Yeah, but to which I immediately respond with my basic human brain. Well, OK, if time began, when did it begin?
Well, quite.
And what was there before?
Quite.
Which is a fairly obvious question.
It is a very obvious question. It's too obvious, and physicists will tell you you're being naive.
Yeah, but they don't know why I'm...
And here's where things really start to get muddled. Theists argue that because we can't comprehend nothingness, there must be a God. It's almost like a fallback position when science doesn't have a clear answer. But this kind of thinking is really just intellectual laziness. The truth is, we don't have to understand everything to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. It's not an excuse to jump to supernatural conclusions. Sure, the origins of the universe may be beyond our current understanding, but that doesn't justify saying God did it as the ultimate explanation. The universe is complex, and while we can't explain everything about its beginnings, that doesn't mean that a supernatural being is the most plausible answer. Think about it this way. Every time we've run into a mystery in the past, we didn't just hand it over to a god. We kept digging, exploring, and questioning. And guess what? Time and time again, natural explanations have emerged. So why not keep doing that instead of retreating to an ancient, simplistic idea of a god?
Being naive. Because they can't provide any actual scientific evidence.
As you've just said, the human brain is not capable of grasping
Right, that's my
things.
point. Yes. So why is it not possible that there is a superior being, power, which many people believe in different ways?
It's possible there are fairies at the bottom
God.
of the garden. I mean, all sorts of things are possible. You can't deny that.
Well, except I've never seen fairies at the end of the garden, have you?
No, you've never seen God either.
No, but you don't know for sure that either doesn't exist.
No, I don't know that fairies don't exist. Fairies may be leprechauns, for all I know.
Do you accept... Have you got milder about this as you've got older?
Yes.
Have you got more accepting that you may be wrong? Less certain?
Well, yes, of course, a scientist may always be wrong, and that's definitely a thing that a scientist has to say. But I'm not vehement. You're provoking me to be vehement because you're taking that tone with me.
Well, you've been provoked before.
Yes.
And you've been quite vehement in response. I'm actually not trying to provoke you. I'm genuinely curious.
Yes.
Because I don't have all the answers, but I'm always sceptical of people who think they do. I don't think you do.
Absolutely not.
But your admission that you don't have all the answers, to me, is quite interesting, because it lends the possibility you might be wrong.
Well, it's not interesting. I mean, no scientist has all the answers. But the one thing you shouldn't say is that because I don't know, therefore God did it. That's a
What do you think
cowardly
happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes.
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul? None of that that's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral...
Yes, if by spirit or soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it, no.
Really?
Well,
this is something a bit more personal. Death. Many say death is not the end, that there's something greater waiting on the other side, but the reality is death is the end, and that's okay. In fact, it makes life even more meaningful. Remember this. If there's no afterlife, we don't get to live forever, so we better make the most of the time we do have. And that's what gives life its urgency and its beauty. We know this is all we have, so we live with purpose. But when you introduce the concept of an afterlife, you start to undermine this idea. You start to live in a way that doesn't truly appreciate the finite nature of life. The problem with religious beliefs in the afterlife is that it shifts your focus away from the here and now. If you're always looking to the next life, you may miss out on the full, rich experience of this one. Death is a part of life. It's sad, but it's also natural. And if you're constantly looking for a way out, some divine promise of another life, you might miss the chance to fully embrace the one you have.
How could I?
Well, people who've gone through weird sort of out-of-body, near-death experiences where they've been pronounced dead for a few minutes, they always talk about, almost all of them talk about this weird...
There's a tunnel of light at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah.
it could be, couldn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, well, read Susan Blackmore on that.
Would you like to be pleasantly surprised, or would you be appalled if you were wrong?
Well, I would be pleasantly surprised for a while. I don't think I'd like to live for all eternity, would you? Would you get...
I don't know, depends what it's like.
Well...
If eternity was watching, cricket at Lord's all day and watching Arsenal win every weekend, yes, give me that.
Really?
Well, if eternity is blissful and a wonderful experience, as some people believe...
I think there is something actually rather frightening about eternity. And I'd be quite glad to be spending it under a general anaesthetic.
Do you fear, given the finality of what you think death to be, do you fear it as you get older?
I fear the process of dying, but when you're dead, you don't know anything. It's just like before you were born. I think it was Mark Twain said, I was dead for billions of years before I was born and never suffered the smallest inconvenience.
But when you have loved ones who've died, for example...
That's tragic.
Yeah, but how do, as somebody who believes literally in the finality, the rotting of a body and that's it must be worse than for somebody like me, where I genuinely believe there's something better to come.
It's worse, so what?
Not so what, just curious, that it must be for you awful each time, far worse than it is for people who have a belief.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people take great comfort from their belief in God, that there is a different life out there.
Yes, they do. So
you don't have that sucker at all.
No.
So is it incredibly painful? More for you, perhaps, than somebody
No, I don't think so.
who is a believer?
Let me put it to you this way. If you really did believe it, wouldn't you say to the person on the deathbed, looking forward to seeing you in purgatory?
A lot of people say, looking forward to seeing you in another life, yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people say that.
You don't really believe it, though.
Actually, I do. Yeah, I do, actually. Because I find it, when I think about it in big picture, which is your great thing, I think, how likely is it that we just got put on this planet, Earth, as human beings, as a one-off kind of entity that existed here, and then you die and that's it? And it only lasted 4 billion years, and before that was absolutely nothing.
Evolution is not random and purposeless. It's a process driven by natural selection. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't need any supernatural force to explain it. We've been told time and time again that life is too complex to have happened by chance. But that's a misunderstanding of how evolution works. It's not a random process in the way people think. It's a process shaped by environmental pressures, competition, and adaptation. It's a process that works over billions of years, and it doesn't need a creator to make it happen. What's amazing is that we don't need a god to appreciate the elegance of life's design. Evolution is the reason we're here, and it's a natural process that explains our existence in a way that doesn't require supernatural intervention. This is about embracing a world where reason, evidence, and critical thinking guide us toward understanding. It's a worldview that recognizes the beauty and complexity of life without resorting to supernatural explanations. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like if this gave you something to think about, and subscribe for more discussions on truth, reason, and free thought.